if you're a woman who has lost your job, or if you just have the fear that you will, and it's not because you're not capable of doing it, it's because of other forces that are beyond your control. Here's what you can do to control some of that.
In this edition of The Color Between the Lines, we're spotlighting a nonprofit that's writing a new chapter for women who've been pushed out of the workplace. As you probably already know, about 300,000 Black women have lost their jobs since the beginning of the year. And the Women of Color Retail Alliance, or WOCRA, is an organization that's building real pathways for women of color across the retail industry. WOCRA is hosting its first B.I.G. Summit, which stands for Blaze, Innovate, and Grow. And that's at Microsoft's New York City headquarters. I spoke with Kimberly Minor. She's the CEO of WOCRA, and she explained to me that this conference isn't about looking at problems, but helping women find solutions. You said in the past that WOCRA, Big Summit, is where possibility becomes progress. And
Yeah.
what does that phrase mean to you personally? And why did you feel that this was the right moment to launch this inaugural event?
Yeah. So possibility becomes progress is really important because in retail and in most corporate settings, Esther, women of color are not promoted based on their possibility, right? Or they're promoted very expedition. No, that's not the word I'm looking for. They are promoted and see progress at such a small rate compared to their peers, right? Who generally get promoted based on their potential, their possibility, right? What can they possibly bring to this? Oh, they have so much potential. We're going to do that. Whereas with women of color, we have to do a project to prove that we did the project, to prove that we can do the project because we did the project. And so when I thought of the big summit, I wanted it to be full of women with potential, meeting people who had moved forward, had the progress to connect, to see where are the synergies so that you know how valuable you are and what that value really can mean with the right connections. And so that's where the possibility of your future meets progress. Because it's going to be an incredible room of people who can see your potential and the possibility of what your future can be.
I looked at some of the lineups. Can you talk a little bit about that? Who's going to be there
Yeah.
and what you're going to be offering in this summit?
Oh yeah, I still can't believe we got the people we got to the table. But so we have McKinsey coming in because everything we do is database, because of course they think that, because we're the Women of Color Retail Alliance, that it's, fuzzy. It's not fuzzy. It's not all about feelings. It's all about data and making a change in the industry. And so McKinsey starts the morning off with, the state of the consumer. Like, this is the value of who we are in the bigger scheme of, revenue and GDP. And then we go from there and we have Anna Blue. She's talking about the mean girl phenomenon. And this is super important to me. And here's why. As I have come in my career, and it's, look, I've moved a lot, but I've been in this space and have had a lot of success. And as I think it was maybe about 6 or 7 years ago, I was being interviewed for a book, to be in a book. And the person who interviewed me was like, so tell me about it. Tell me about the old white man who's gotten in your way in your career. And I said, oh, is that what this interview is about? And she said, well, yes, because they get in the way of our careers. And I said, oh, I can't. And she said, why? I said, because that has not been my experience. I said, my experience has been that there have been women who have gotten in my way. There have been quite a few who have seen me coming and were intimidated and could not possibly let me get past them for whatever reason. I said, so I think we need to have a different conversation. And so when I met Anna, and we hit it off, and she was telling me about this research she had done and what she want. And I was like, you know what? I am so tired of this old narrative. The truth needs to be told. Women don't always support women. And I know we've got memes and we've got all of these little things all over social media, but the reality is that that is not true. So let's call a spade, and let's get that out there. So we have her, right? So I'm super excited for that. And then we have Sunny Hostin. Sunny Hostin. So look, not only do we have Sunny Hostin, but I get to interview her. I'm so excited. Because my background. I went to school of radio, television, and film. I wanted to do what you do. I wanted to be Oprah. Like when I saw Oprah and I was in school and I was like, oh, I could do that. And it didn't work out. The stars weren't aligned. But every opportunity I get, I pull out what I learned in school, journalism and communication, and now I get to apply it with Sunny Hostin. So that's exciting. And then we have these workshops where we have AI, and not only just AI. So we have the Retail AI Council. We've partnered with them. We've partnered with Sonar, and it's every session you can get a certificate. And what's important about that is, what we talked about earlier, that as women of color, we have to prove. So now, not only will you have AI training, right? Because there's a lot of buzz around AI, but when you come down and understand the numbers, not as many people have training in that area as would be necessary to continue the future of your work, right? Because it's changing. And so we want to make sure that if you come to our summit and you take the AI sessions, that you have the most current and up-to-date training to help you for the future, because we have to think beyond what we're doing now. And so that's great. And the certification on top of that is a way to just prove that you have that training. So no one can take that away from you.
It's so nice that you have an event which is touching on women's empowerment, especially given the fact that you were talking about, because that was one of the things I was going to talk to you about, was the number of women, especially Black women, who have lost their jobs between January and now. And it's really scary for a lot of women right now. So how will this forum help those women who might be in that space? And what do you want to say to them?
Yeah, it will help them. So if you're a woman who has lost your job, or if you just have the fear that you will, and it's not because you're not capable of doing it, it's because of other forces that are beyond your control. Here's what you can do to control some of that. By coming to the summit, you will be in the room. So this is an equal playing field. There's no VIP section. You could be sitting next to someone. These are some of the brands that will be in the room. LVMH, Chanel, Macy's. I'm just thinking, VS and Co, Aloe. My goodness, the list goes on. And then we also have a bunch of recruiters. So Kirk Palmer, #1 recruiter in retail. Broadview Talent Partners. They are amazing. They're international and they focus on people of color. And then, we've brought in personal and professional development, which I think is really important because it goes together. Like, we don't separate at the door. This is not severance. This is real. And you bring your personal self with you wherever you go. And so we want to make sure that people understand what does that look like, right? The whole idea of work-life balance to me is it's a myth, but it's really about integration and how do you integrate what you're doing professionally with who you are personally so that it works. And so we have professional development on leadership, pivot, right? Boardroom ascension. People have aspirations to get into a boardroom. It sounds good, but what does that really mean? Pivot, we have to be ready for a pivot because this economy is killing us and it's really killing Black women. Like, what, almost 350,000 Black women have lost their job by June, like between what, February and June, right? And the other groups have gained. Right. So I think for 40,000 Black women lost their jobs, 356,000 white men got jobs, and 145,000 white women and 162,000 Latina women. If I have the numbers, give or take a couple thousand. So when you think about that, you should always be thinking about the pivot. And then for I'm sorry, for personal development, how not to burn out. How not to burn out. I mean, my goodness, it's so easy because you're working so hard to be recognized and to do the job that you're so qualified for, because we know that you're not going to be in any room that you're not doubly qualified for. So that's the day. And then we end with this incredible awards ceremony, because one of our key values of WOCRA is to celebrate women of color who have made achievements that are unsung because we don't get celebrated. And so this is our first opportunity to really do it on a in a big way. And so we have Brandis Daniel from Harlem's Fashion Row as our big award recipient. And then we have Shawan Johnson from BS & Co., first woman of color chief merchandising officer. We have Cynthia Soul from Microsoft. She is killing it in AI and innovation. Let's see, Masaka is at Allo. A new anthropology. She's the president of anthropology, and she has led the past, I think, 5 quarters of double-digit comps. So like these are women who are really doing some stuff, and people don't really know them because they're not, it's not necessarily on the forefront of fashion, right? Because fashion gets a lot of attention. I was talking to someone recently and I said, well, how do we get some exposure? Like, what's going on in the press? And she was like, well, when you can make retail sexy, we'll want to talk to you. And so I just want her to know, I don't know if I've made it sexy, but I'm talking to you, right? So we're out there. I'm talking to you, Esther.
I know that I'm looking at some of the stats that from before, and I wanted to get to this because this is, I think, is very important, that women of color make up about a third of retail jobs, but only
They do.
6% of the C-suite leadership.
Yeah, and so here's what further complicates those numbers. So yes, we're about a third of the retail jobs. And just to be clear, when we're talking about retail jobs, we're not talking about the fashion store jobs, right? We're talking about all the retail jobs. And retail in the United States, according to the National Retail Federation, means 55 million jobs. 55 million jobs. So we're a third of that number. And we overpopulate at 80%, Esther, 80% of the lowest paying jobs in that industry. So that means in the distribution center, in the front line. There are brands that you can work for their store, but if you're a woman of color, you're going to work in the back. You're going to be in the stock room, right? That's where the least paid. So 80% of the lowest paying jobs are held by women of color. 6% of leadership is held by women of color, but just being more caveats. That's C-suite, right? Those jobs that are considered C-suite, they're not necessarily C-suite business leaders. that number includes C-suite support. So they very well could also be in administrative jobs, but that job is just in the C-suite. So all of that together is just, it's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good, and it doesn't make sense, right? It just doesn't. Yeah.
Did some of those numbers kind of shape what the mission was behind WOCRA and this summit coming up?
It absolutely. And here's the thing. Those of us who found it, so there was a group of women. I had gone to a conference shortly after I left Bath and Body Works, and Bath and Body Works was not a good experience for me. Those things of the limitations and the improving, it made me physically ill, right? And so once I left, and I was at a conference, I was talking to a group of women, and we were a diverse mix, but all women of color having a conversation. And we were the only women of color at the conference, and there were about 400 women, and we could all sit at a table, and there were a couple seats open. So I think I painted a picture. And so I was sharing my experience, and then someone else was like, oh my goodness, I had that experience too. Oh my goodness, I had that experience too. And I said, well, we should do something about this, because this doesn't make sense. And we don't want people behind us having this experience. Like, we all have titles now of president of this and president of that. But how much do we have to pay to get to these roles?
Right.
And so that's what started us. Now, once we said we wanted to do something, we had no idea what we were going to do. We really didn't. I was like, okay, I don't know. They're like, well, Kimberly, what's your, I don't know. So the first thing we did was just go on LinkedIn, and then we did a virtual gathering, and that's where We Should Know Each Other came from. And over the year, then from there was a core group of us that said, yeah, let's do something. And we just started trying things. Let's try to partner with a retailer. Let's try to do a networking thing. Let's try to do some training programs. Let's connect with some trainers. And so then we brought in like people, that's what they do, right? Oh, these people, they made a living in executive training. Let's create some training programs. Now we're going to, put that training out there. And so over the years in doing that, I guess it was about 2 years ago, we realized that there was a lot, like it was almost smoke, because we were doing all these things and we were growing, but we weren't growing at the pace of what we were putting out there. And I said, it's so important, but I don't think the women who need this the most know about us. And I was noticing on LinkedIn and other social media and talking to people and being out, when I took the role of CEO in September of 23, we were founded in 21. But when I just like in earnest was speaking and going to conferences and doing all of that, and I would meet women and they would talk to me about women's organizations that weren't necessarily serving them, but that's all they knew. And they didn't know about us. And I said, what do we have? What haven't we done that these other organizations have done? And the one thing that they had done that we hadn't done is that they had these big gatherings every year. And so I said, okay, then we need to do a summit. So 2 years ago, we started planning the summit. And I was like, nope, needs to be bigger. Right. And so like, it has to be in New York City. Right. That's the core right now. Of where most of our people are. And we have to have some real heavy hitting. We can't do it like everyone else. We can't just, throw together some people and have some speaking and call it a day. Like, it has to be really intentional and mindful. And so it took 2 years to put this together. But my hope for it is that it's a full room, right? Hopefully we get 200 people. Right now we're over capacity, but I know because we're able to now offer it for free, things fall off. So we want 200 people in the room, but we really want the women who are in the room to not appreciate, but really gain something from it and then become ambassadors, just like they were ambassadors for these other organizations that they come together and then nothing happens from that. It's just a nice feel good thing. We want people to tell, who did they meet? What did
Right.
that mean? What did they learn? How's that going to influence tomorrow? And really make it something meaningful that we can build on year over year.
I guess my last question is, where can people find this and what exactly, when do they have that? What's that deadline and for them
Yeah.
to do that,
Okay.
And-
So go to, this is long, so get your pen, but WOCRaTailAlliance.org/big-summit, right? So if you're going to the website, that's where you go. If you're on LinkedIn, just go to my profile. You can go to, go to Walk Retail Alliance on LinkedIn, or go to me, Kimberly Minor. There's information there, up to date. The deadline, you have to be pre-registered. We are hosted by Microsoft in their headquarters at their innovation lab. Very cool space, right in Times Square, like literally right across from Port Authority. You can't miss it. It says Microsoft. It's on 8th Avenue between 40th and 41st, right? No, between 41st and 42nd, but right across from Port Authority, Times Square. It's September 25th, 8:30 to 5. But you have to be registered, and it's a 2-step registration, and you have to be registered by September 22nd. If you come, if you reach out on the 23rd, I'm sorry, nothing I can do. And if you come to Microsoft on the 25th and you have not registered, they will not let you in.
Oh.
So by the 22nd, do it now so that you can do the 2-step process and be registered by the 22nd. Like, I can't emphasize that enough. And as people have been registered, and we send the information right out to them so they can, keep it moving, because we want everyone who wants to be there to be there.
All right. The final word, what would you say for those who might be on the fence about whether or not this is really the right thing for them?
So here's what it's not. Okay, this is not a session where we're going to be talking about the problems. This is a session where we're going to be talking about the solutions and giving you tools and resources to invest in yourself. And we're making it available to you for free. So if you are not that valuable to yourself, then stay home. But if you and your career and your future means something to you, you should be in the room. If you're in New York, now I will say there are people coming from a lot of different places in New York, and God bless them, because the hotel rates are ridiculous. This week, I'm not sure what that is, but if you're in New York and all you have to do is jump on the subway, a bus, or walk, then there's no excuse. You should be in the room. And here's the other thing. Our programming is built and created with women of color in the focus, right? Which is unique. We're the only organization that does this. Not my words, other people's words. While our programming is very intentional, people take different things away. And so don't feel that if you're not a woman of color, you can't come, because we only grow with the right allies and with people learning how to be a better citizen who can support each other.
Well, before you go, WOCRA's B.I.G. Summit, Blaze, Innovate, and Grow. Remember, it is September 25th inside Microsoft's New York City office. But if you want to go, you need to pre-register by Monday, September 22nd to secure your spot. And it's for free. You can find the details and RSVP on WOCRA's website. Until next time, I'm Esther Dillard.